It's such a joy to be here with all of you, women who are balancing the beautiful, messy, noisy, and rewarding journey of motherhood while also showing up in your careers, in your communities, and for yourselves. I'm Alexandra Los, and I have the privilege of serving as the head of education for Little Sprouts, Building Blocks, and Heartworks, a network of early education schools throughout New England dedicated to nurturing children during their most critical years of development. But beyond my professional role, I am also a mother of 3 young children, so I, like all of you, know the daily juggle of constantly shifting between the various roles that we hold. Today we live in a world that is so spread out, geographically, socially, and professionally. It can be easy to feel isolated. It's easy to wonder, where is my village? The idea of a village is an age-old one, where a group of people come together to support, nurture, and raise a child. But with families spread across different cities, working longer hours, and just being constantly on the move, it feels like finding that village can be harder to find. But that is where the magic of early childhood education comes in. One of the things I'm most passionate about, and we're most passionate about, is how early education can be more than a place where your children are cared for and educated while you go to work, but a place that becomes our village. We were never meant to do this alone, yet so many of us feel like we have to. Like we've heard today, a great early childhood program is a place where families are supported, moms are understood, and community is built. It's the teachers who become our trusted partners, our children's cheerleaders, the directors who offer guidance and reassurance, and the fellow parents who become our friends. It means surrounding ourselves with a community that reminds us we don't have to do this alone. It's the drop-off chats that turn into meaningful conversations, the school events that build community, and the feeling of knowing that your child is not just safe, but seen, understood, and encouraged. Because when we have trusted partners caring for our children, it allows us to focus on our careers, our health, and our own growth without guilt. You know, just last week when I was in an own personal child care crisis and nobody was there to pick up my children from school, within 30 minutes, 2 incredible teachers stepped up, making me know that they will stay with my children, and a fellow parent who has become a friend offered to take my 3 children home and hang out with them until we got back. That was a powerful reminder of how early education isn't just about learning. It's about building a community that supports, uplifts, and shows up when it matters most. So let's get back to today and take this time for ourselves. Let's highlight the incredible strength and resilience that we all show every single day. Let's learn, reflect, and walk away with the tools to feel our best, because when moms thrive, families, communities, and workplaces thrive too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Welcome, Dr. Heather Hirsch. I think that I speak for every perimenopausal woman in this room. I'm so glad they turned on the AC. It feels, feels so good. Thank you for being here, Heather. Can I call you Heather?
Of course.
I call you Heather. Maybe we could just start, you were one of the first doctors to really normalize the menopause and the perimenopause conversation. And I would love to just hear a little bit about, for the sake of our audience, tell us a little bit about what you do, and then we're going to talk about what perimenopause really is.
Okay, wonderful. I also calculated when I lived in Massachusetts, $96,000 a year was what I was spending to have 3 children in daycare. I got out my calculator to double check this. So I started my career, I always wanted to take care of women. I started in OBGYN and I realized really quickly I wasn't great in the middle of the night. So I transitioned into internal medicine. And, after spending time in internal medicine, I kind of wound up going into a fellowship at Cleveland Clinic called Advanced Women's Health. And in 2014, so this was a long time ago, women would come from all over the globe, all over the country to go to Cleveland, which we dubbed the mistake on the lake. And they would see my mentor. And I was like, what is this thing that is seeming to happen to every woman? And they would come in tears, just saying like, I don't feel like myself. I don't look like myself. I don't know who I am anymore. So I saw my mentors discuss with them hormone replacement therapy and various other options through the perimenopause to menopause transition. And when they came back, oh my gosh, they were like hugging and flowers, and the husband had brought flowers and more cookies, and they just felt so alive. And I couldn't believe, I always wanted to take care of women, and was also a women's studies major when I was in college. I couldn't believe that this thing called perimenopause and menopause that all women will go through, nobody teaches you. And so then I went on to start a clinic at Ohio State, was recruited to the Brigham and Women's Hospital. I built the Menopause Midlife Clinic in 2019. And the first opening day of the Menopause Clinic was March 3rd, 2020. So then, very quickly, we learned how to do telemedicine for midlife women's health. And so that's really my passion, is to help women understand what's happening with their bodies through their 40s, 50s, and then beyond. Because if you ask me, it is the most crucial transition we will go through. Because how you treat your body in this time is how you're going to spend your 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond.
So when we think about perimenopause, this word, we hear it now, everybody's talking about it. Drew Barrymore's talking about it. Gwyneth Paltrow's talking about it. Everybody, all of my text threads, my friends are like, oh, I have frozen shoulder.
Is it perimenopause?
Is it perimenopause? Oh, I'm tired. I'm angry.
Is it perimenopause?
What is perimenopause?
Exactly. It's funny because I actually, I'm also at the same time, I think there's two of me, Harvard Medical School is putting on a CME, Women's Health and Menopause. So I've been there teaching this week as well. And it's amazing because there's 1,200 clinicians who are now eager to learn how to help and treat women through the perimenopause to menopause transition. So it's basically when your ovaries, which make the sex hormones, which do more than that, your estrogen and your testosterone, they start to decline. And your body is adjusting to these declining estrogen levels. And as that's happening, you will get symptoms that are very similar to menopause. You're just still menstruating. And so because of that, it's hard to tell, is it just that I hate my mother-in-law, or is it perimenopause? And so menopause is defined as a year of no period. My poor mother-in-law has been getting every joke in the book. I love her. Menopause is 12 months without a period. And then perimenopause is really very much similar to menopause, the same type of symptoms you probably all see on your feeds, but a woman is still ovulating or menstruating. And other symptoms, I think it's important to call those out. Low progesterone, that can result in like new onset anxiety or insomnia, which I had last night. So I can't believe I'm running on like 4 hours of sleep, but I bet some of you are too. And then the low estrogen can cause symptoms of dryness, so hot flashes, night sweats, itchy ears, dry skin, low libido, dry brittle hair that's breaking and won't grow back. And all of those can be symptoms of perimenopause. I know. I know. I'm always like, oh gosh, what else is in that bucket of fun stuff?
But there are certain things, I think, especially with this group of, perimenopause comes at a very inopportune time because I have two kids I have an 8-year-old and a 14-year-old. I am dealing with perimenopause. I am busy with work. It all seems to hit at the same time. When we think about parenting and perimenopause, what do women come to you specifically about in that lens? I mean, is it that people are showing up to work and they've not gotten enough sleep? Is it that suddenly you're getting a period in the middle of a meeting that you hadn't gotten in 5 months? What's going on?
All of those things. You know, I think when it comes to parenting, whether this is the Working Women's Summit, so I'm assuming we're all also working. But a lot of moms will come to me and they will notice their mood starts to change. We call this short fusitis, or a word that starts with a B. And they'll say, they'll say, I just snap at my children. And that experience of feeling like outside of your body, becoming like this monster and snapping at either your children or your spouse, it will really move them to think to themselves, this is not like me. Like, yes, I can be irritated, but this is way out of the norm for me. In fact, I once had a nun come to me and she said, Heather, cursing, and I do not do this. And this is not like me. And actually, I want to explain a little bit about the mood. Estrogen, it's declining. It's actually a natural antidepressant. Estrogen keeps serotonin in the brain longer, and estrogen prevents the degradation of serotonin, that happy hormone. We've all probably heard of antidepressants, or as they're also referred to as SSRIs. So that's what estrogen naturally does. So as it's declining and it's really volatile, that can really trigger you to have a short fuse. And that might not be just with your children, that might be with your coworkers as well. And this absolutely, if you think that you're the only one, or it's only happened to you, or, this happens to women all the time. In every state I've lived in and treated patients, this is so common. And progesterone is a little bit of a calming hormone. Progesterone increases GABA, a neurotransmitter in our brain that makes us feel a little calm and sleepy. So that first trimester of pregnancy, when you're not even really pregnant yet, but you're so tired, that's the progesterone. And so as these hormones are declining, they really can affect our mood, and then our sleep, and then the brain fog, and then the productivity, and then you just want to snap at everybody. But really, if you leave today knowing that there is a physiologic process that's happening in your body, it's not necessarily your fault, and that there's things that we can do about it, I hope you feel more empowered and definitely not alone.
What do we do about it? So I have so many friends who are like, I just slapped on an estrogen patch and it felt, maybe that does work, but it's not a one size fits all. How do you treat this?
Yes. Okay. There's so many ways that you can treat it. I want to start with maybe the first thing I would recommend doing, which is journaling and tracking. So if we're talking strictly perimenopause, you may be tracking your periods, any spotting, any bleeding. Because if it really is perimenopause versus just, your annoying mother-in-law, I know, I love you, Susie. I just use her as a, but there may be some sort of cyclic pattern. Now, you may be a woman who doesn't have periods because either you have some form of birth control. Maybe you've had your uterus removed for various procedures. So even if you're not bleeding, you can still track, not periods, but those mood changes, the hot flashes that may come and go, the night sweats that may come and go. So that is the very first thing I recommend, so you can really start to see a pattern. Then there are lots of different options, and I'll ask you which one you want me to get into. But then, I kind of think about these as three big buckets. There's non-hormonal and lifestyle changes, lifestyle and over-the-counters. There is non-hormonal options, and then there's hormone therapy. I'm going to guess you might want me to talk about hormone therapy.
HRT.
So I just spent an entire day teaching, again, at Harvard, 1,200 clinicians that you can absolutely prescribe hormone therapy to a woman who's in perimenopause and still menstruating. There's so many myths and misconceptions about hormone therapy, but if you've ever been on any form of birth control before, in my mind, you've been on hormone therapy before. And hormone therapy can be such a safe and effective way to treat these symptoms. Now, definitely, this could be a really long conversation, but I just kind of mentioned as the progesterone's declining, that can increase anxiety and insomnia. And if you find that you're getting to bed, you can't fall asleep, your mind won't stop racing, sometimes we can add, a doctor can prescribe progesterone. So we're replacing that hormone that's now lowering. And if it's more of the low estrogen symptoms, like you're hot and dry, you're itchy, we can add a little bit of estrogen back. And so we can do that in various different ways. So patch, pill, spray, gel. I absolutely always recommend FDA-approved hormone replacement therapy because there's lots of different options here in Boston. There's lots of clinicians who are doing compounded or injections or pellets, and those can be really actually dangerous. But when you are a working mom, you're in your mid-40s, you're at the peak of your career, your kids are so busy, you can't sleep, you're really stressed, you're not feeling like yourself, you look in the mirror and you think, who is this person? I will solve this problem. It is really easy, unfortunately, to find medications that are not approved. But I am hoping to help train so many clinicians here in Boston, here in Massachusetts, who would love to help discuss with you all these different options for perimenopause.
I know we've talked about this before. I've asked you this before, but for this group, I mean, is there a test? How do you know? Do you just go to your doctor and say, I'm sweating all the time and I can't stand my mother-in-law? Okay, we'll give you hormone replacement. Or is there a test that they do at a certain time of the month for a couple of months to see what your hormones are doing? How do you know definitively that it's perimenopause?
Great question. I see this all the time, especially on social media, where people will come, patients will say to me, I got my labs and my doctor said, everything's fine. Yeah. And you're like, I don't feel fine. So there is no lab test that rules in or rules out perimenopause, unfortunately. That would be great, but it's really a clinical diagnosis. That means the clinician takes the information that you bring to them and decides with you, this is perimenopause. So if you think you have perimenopause, and as I'm talking, you're like, all of that checks off, I am diagnosing you with perimenopause, okay? You got it in your chart. So the most important thing that you can do is actually journal and track, because how a clinician will help decide is really if they see those cyclic patterns of the night sweats before my period, the insomnia before my period, the irritability right before ovulation, whatever that might be, that's pretty cyclic, that's going to help them decide. Now, if you are a woman who doesn't get periods, you still do the same thing. Actually, nothing different. You just might not track those periods in there. But as to lab tests, there's no specific one test that rules it in or rules it out. I do help my patients if they're lab junkies, because a lot of people now have their Oura rings and the Apple Watch and they want to track everything. And so labs can be a little bit more data to help you, but it's always going to really be a clinical diagnosis.
Okay. We've all seen these Instagram memes of all of the things that we have to do in our 40s. Like you have to eat 12 grams of protein, and you also have to get your heart rate up, but you also have to do strength training, and you also have to be all of the things. We don't have time to do all of the things.
I am right there with you.
What do we prioritize during perimenopause? Like, how do you live a life that is healthy but also rational? I guess that's the big question, right?
This is a really great question. And I'm with one of my friends today, and we talk about how when we're in crisis mode, we don't necessarily feel like counting macros and putting on a weighted vest and drinking black coffee and intermittent fasting. Like, that's just not realistic. I would say if you could prioritize one thing, or maybe two, but if you could prioritize one thing, it might be sleep. Sleep. Sleep is so crucial. And again, I saw a meme of someone on TikTok saying, I would love to get 8 hours of sleep. Yes, please sign me up. But, again, so think about your sleep as kind of the top of the pyramid. If your sleep is fragmented, which it often is if you're a mom, is kind of like sleep gets fragmented once we get pregnant. Then we don't sleep well. Then we have the baby. Then they're up. And then we're breastfeeding. And on it forever goes. And then you have kids in your bed. Like, they're so old. Why are they still in your bed? But, and then he forgot to take off the underwear and put on a nighttime diaper, and it's just like, oh my gosh. But if you can really try to prioritize your sleep, it's going to help you even when you don't necessarily maybe feel your strongest or your best in perimenopause. Do all those things that we're kind of saying are good for you. Track a little bit, spend a little time with yourself, make that doctor's appointment, etc. So sleep. And if you have a lot of trouble sleeping, of course, there's lots of resources on sleep hygiene. But tell your family, if you can, like, I need to spend a couple nights in the other room. I really need to sleep. So I would say starting with sleep would be the most important. Second, after that, would be get a little bit of movement in each day, like something that you do by yourself, that you don't have your cell phone, and you can just move. That will also maybe help you sleep if you haven't been exercising in a while, me included, but adding a little bit of weight-bearing exercise, and even if it's just 20 minutes minutes, even if it's just a walk outside, it's going to help you. So those are the two things I would say. And then if you really are thinking to yourself, I really am suffering, I would be happy to send you a list of 1,200 clinicians who are excited to see you. Because getting a little bit of support, again, in discussing your options and then starting to feel 50% better, then you can do all of those things, track the macros and the weighted vest and the whatever. You got to feel a little bit better first.
And so we should say, is it the North American Menopause Society? There's a network of providers who are trained.
Yes.
Right? What is that called?
Yes. So if you're looking for resources, there's a couple places. So the Menopause Society, there's actually a society of doctors, not that big, but who actually focus primarily on perimenopause and menopause. So you can go to menopause.org and you can go under search for a provider. Also, I have a directory as well, and that's heatherhirschdirectory.com. And I have trained over 1,000 clinicians as well on how to prescribe FDA-approved hormone therapy so they don't make you feel worse, because that's really important. Finding a knowledgeable provider is the bottleneck right now that I'm trying to solve for, because currently there's one well-trained clinician for every 32,000 women. I know I'm the barrier of bad news up here, but we're working on changing that. Other resources, those would probably be the best ones to start with. Certainly menopause.org, you can search by zip code.
We have a few more minutes, and I knew there would be audience questions, so I want to just get a couple. What, if anything, can we do to prepare for perimenopause and combat it?
Oh, what to do to prepare? That's a great question, one I haven't been asked recently, but I think sitting here, having dialogues, talking about it amongst each other. One of the nice things about celebrities talking about it is it makes it a little bit more okay for us to talk about it, and that's wonderful. I would say especially, I think about perimenopause and menopause in the workplace a lot because, again, there's data on this that women with untreated symptoms actually it's increasing the cost of healthcare, and it's not your fault, but women tend to go to 5 to 7 different clinicians before they actually get help. They go to the sleep doctor, and then the PCP, and then their OBGYN, and then the psychiatrist, and on it goes. So just being aware about perimenopause and the changes that could be coming, talking amongst your friends, forming groups and communities, keeping the room cold for those of us up here who are... I think, honestly, that is such a wonderful thing, and it's something we did not have even 5 years ago.
Last but not least, any misconceptions about perimenopause that we're getting wrong right now that you just want to set the record straight?
Oh, my gosh. You guys are asking good ones. Misconceptions about perimenopause.
Or what aren't we talking about enough?
I would say a lot of my patients, my sister, she said to me, Heather, is perimenopause starting earlier than it used to, or is everyone just talking about it? And I said, I don't know, because we really haven't been collecting data on perimenopause ever. And again, perimenopause specifically, the period of time where you're still having periods, but you're having symptoms, which can last up to 10 years. We haven't been tracking any of this. This is wild, right? And so one of the misconceptions is, has anything that happened in the last couple of years, has that affected perimenopause? Has that changed the age of menopause? Has it made our ovaries a little fritzy? Mm-hmm. Are there endocrine disruptors that are causing us to go into perimenopause earlier? I don't know. And I wish, though, that from here on out, we change healthcare by starting to actually do better recordings, listen to women, validate their feelings, treat them, chart it, and then we'll have some of those answers.
You are amazing. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Dr. Hirsch, that was amazing and empowering and informative. I think we can all be very grateful for your time. I'm going to connect this to early childhood education because caring for ourselves, we know, is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Whether it's navigating perimenopause, managing our own stress, or simply making time for ourselves to get that 15 minutes of exercise a day, we know that prioritizing self-care allows us to show up fully in all of the roles that we play. But here's something to think about. What if we had learned that sooner? This is where early childhood education plays a powerful role. The habits, mindsets, and emotional resilience that we exhibit as adults are shaped by the experiences that we have in our earliest years. It's in these early moments where our brain is, the foundation of our brain architecture is taking place for all future learning, behavior, and health. Imagine if every child grew up understanding how to listen to their bodies, manage their emotions, and prioritize self-care, not just as something extra, but as something essential. Imagine if they saw all the adults around them modeling these behaviors, modeling balance, rest, and emotional awareness. That's the power of investing in early education. High-quality early education programs don't just prepare children academically, they help them build emotional intelligence, resilience, and self-care habits that will serve them for a lifetime. By teaching children about mindfulness, their bodies, movement, and emotional regulation at a young age, we're shaping future generations who won't wait until a breaking point to care for themselves. They'll know that well-being starts from the very beginning. Thank you.